Doors is a Roblox horror game, but let's be honest, this doesn't look scary at all. So am I really gonna spend almost a week to remake Roblox Doors into a horror game that's actually scary? The shorter answer is yes. Let me show you how I made it. So I started off with a new 3D project and started making the room, because doors take place inside someplace, I guess? It also looked pretty boring inside of a room with blank walls, so I found some cool textures and slapped them on. So now that I have my room, it's just me in a room, and I can't move or anything. I think I need a player. So there are two problems. First, I'm lazy. Now the second problem is I don't have a player, and I don't want to spend a ridiculous amount of time modeling a realistic model, so I think a bean will suffice for now. Let's call him Billy. So right now, Billy can't move. Poor Billy. Let's code in some movement. So now that Billy can move, I forgot one important detail: doors. If I'm gonna make a terrible ripoff of a Roblox game, I might as well copy the main mechanic, going through doors. Now, I don't want to get sued or anything, so I'm gonna make a major change. It's a revolving door. I'm actually a genius. Now that I've successfully avoided being hunted down by the developers of Doors, it's time for the next step. Now, I've never actually played Doors before, but in all of the videos, there's always seems to be some sort of closet you can hide in. So I quickly put together a closet, and not gonna lie, that's a nice closet if you ask me. So I slapped on a wooden texture and some handles, and now I need to make it so that we can actually hide inside it. And while doing this, I ran into this strange bug. So when I go into a revolving door, I want to move along with it, but instead I'm just like spinning around like this. That's not good. So after some quick struggling to understand how a character controller works, I can turn off physics when I'm touching the revolving door and when I'm not moving. And now it works pretty good. Yeah, it's too good. The physics turn off when I'm jumping, so let me fix that real quick. Now, if you ever hidden inside of a closet as a child, then you know, like I do, you can't go inside of it if you can't open the doors. And I can't open the doors. So now I can open the doors. Not really. The text says I can open the doors, but the doors just don't want to cooperate. And I'm not joking when I said that I spent 2 hours trying to figure out how to make the player open these dumb doors. But eventually, the doors realized that I was gonna fight finger and thumb to the death, so they started cooperating. Now, in most horror games, the level is pretty dark, and you usually have a flashlight that you're carrying around. So I turned down the darkness all the way down there, added in some reddish fog, and I attached a light to the player. That's supposed to be a flashlight. Now, horror games are also scary realistic, and I realized that my game doesn't look realistic at all. Luckily, I turned up the graphics by installing actual ray tracing into Unity, and now I can barely see 3 feet in front of me, so it's perfect. Now that I have the basics of my game, I want to make the enemy for it. Now in Roblox Doors, there's a couple of what they call entities. There are like dozens of them. Most of them are actually faces slapped onto a floating head. Look at this one. It's literally a flat 2D image that can merge through walls. I'm not going to go the lazy route. So the one that I want to make is Seek, the most humanoid and 3D one I can find. It's also the easiest one for me to make. It's basically a Minecraft Enderman with a single eye and shiny skin. So I got to work smashing together cubes to form the final character. And now that I have it made, it needs a name. How about Pedro? So now that Pedro is in the game, he's just stuck there. He's just T-posing until I run into him. So I started making some animations for Pedro, but then I realized that I forgot the eye. So I went back and made an eye emoji, and then I connected it with Pedro's head, and now you can see. Now animating the run animation took a lot of time, mostly because I didn't think a lot when I was making the character. And because the character has no bones, I had to reposition the cubes every time I rotated them. And also nothing was connected to each other, so if I try moving the upper arm, the hand won't even follow along. Anyways, I finished the animation even though it took way longer than it should have, and what the heck is wrong with the arms? Anyways, let's see the final animation. I mean, it looks okay, but I can do a lot better. So I did the one thing that I absolutely did not want to do when I started remaking Doors: modeling a realistic character from scratch. So I started off with the head, made the body, the legs, and then I ended up with this. Oh shoot, I forgot the arms. So I sculpted out some arms for Pedro, and I think it looks pretty happy now. But I wasn't. Pedro's looking kinda chunky, if you know what I mean. So I continued smoothing it down until I arrived at this. It's okay. I'm making a ripoff anyway, so it doesn't have to be that good. Then I started making some bones for Pedro. So I quickly gave him some bones, and look at that! After the bones worked out alright, I painted some textures onto Pedro, then I slapped that back into Unity where I remade the run animation. And this one took me a lot faster this time since Pedro had bones. So let's see what it looks like now. Yo, not gonna lie, Pedro's looking kinda scary, especially with that flashlight for his eyes. Now, what's the purpose of a horror game? Most of the times, you have to try to escape from whatever world you're stuck in. And in Doors, you have to collect stuff, I think. So I modeled a key, and then I made it float around and stuff, because floating around is cool, and it's my game. Then I realized that Pedro can't move. He's just standing there, lifeless. just running around in place for eternity. So I made yet another animation of Pedro running. But this time, it's moving around the level that I made. It's a single room. The horror level is pretty small right now, and I needed it to be bigger, so you have to explore more. Indoors, I bet the developers used a bunch of complicated math and boring stuff to make procedurally generated levels, but I'm just me, so I copied and pasted the rooms around to make this. Now from up here, the level looks pretty small, but remember, we're inside of the rooms, and the player has to move pretty slow, so it's actually pretty big inside. Next, I needed a way to complete the game, since right now, collecting the keys has no purpose. So I constructed a huge closet at the end of the level, and I found some cool lock models to use in my game. And while I was at it, I noticed that Roblox Doors, they're lamps that on the wall, that they flicker when the monster comes. So I stole that effect and put it right into my game. And right now there really isn't a way to die, so I can stare straight at Pedro and nothing happens to me. So I put a hitbox on the player's line of sight, so every time that we look at Pedro, our health decreases. And I even coded in a little sound effect that plays when you look at Pedro, so now you know to look away. Indoors, the rooms are full of furniture and just random clutter, so I searched the internet for some junk, which is honestly pretty easy nowadays, and I arranged some boxes, some gas, some shovels into my game. And then I messed around with something called a shader graph, which is a fancy way of saying I don't know how the heck to use this feature. And I made this, which I don't even know what it is. I was trying to make Pedro have like a little glow, but So now that we have a death screen, I need a win screen, because what's the purpose of playing a horror game if you can't even beat it? So inside of the ending closet, I put a glowing box, because who doesn't like glowing boxes? So theoretically, when you touch it, you should win the game. I wouldn't know, I can't even get to the end of it without dying. So anyway, here's some scary gameplay. Headphones is recommended.